Ethan Calloway, a self-made billionaire known for his ruthless business acumen, returned to his father's grave on the anniversary of his passing, a tradition he never missed despite his otherwise cold demeanor. His father, Robert Calloway, had been a man of integrity, a man who always believed in kindness over wealth, a lesson Ethan had long discarded in his pursuit of power. As he stood before the marble tombstone in the crisp autumn air, reflecting on his father's last words, "Give where it's needed, and you'll find what you never knew you lost," his thoughts were interrupted by the faint sounds of muffled sobs. Turning, he saw two frail, dirt-streaked twin girls huddled together on the damp ground, their eyes filled with sorrow and exhaustion. They clutched each other for warmth, their oversized, tattered clothes barely shielding them from the wind. Ethan frowned, his mind struggling to make sense of their presence. Why were two young children alone in a cemetery? "What are you doing here?" Ethan asked, his voice sharp but controlled. The girls hesitated, glancing at each other before the braver one, Lily, spoke. "We come here every day. Our mom told us this man was kind, and if we talk to him, maybe he'll tell God to help us." Ethan's throat tightened. "This man?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The other girl, Rose, nodded solemnly. "Yes, Mr. Robert Calloway. We read his name. Mama said he was a good man." His chest clenched at their words. He had spent his life proving he didn't need his father's ideals, yet here were these two innocent children, believing in the very thing he had dismissed. "Where is your mother?" he asked, dreading the answer. Lily lowered her gaze. She died last winter. We've been on our own since." Ethan, who had built an empire from nothing, suddenly felt powerless. He knelt before them, something foreign stirring in his chest. "Do you have anywhere to go?" The girls shook their heads. Ethan inhaled sharply. For years, he had measured success by the size of his fortune, by the fear and respect he commanded, yet standing in front of his father's grave, confronted by two helpless children with nowhere to turn, he felt like the poorest man alive. Memories of his childhood flooded his mind. His father had been a man of generosity, always helping those in need, yet Ethan had chosen a different path. He had buried himself in business, shutting out emotions, viewing the world in terms of profits and losses. But now, looking at the twin girls, he felt an unfamiliar sense of responsibility, something deeper than charity. He had spent years ignoring the suffering around him, yet here were two children who had nowhere else to turn, seeking solace at the grave of the man he had spent his life trying to outgrow. In that moment, he made a decision that would change everything. He scooped up the girls into his arms and whispered, "You do now." The words left his lips before he could process their full weight, but as he held their trembling bodies, he knew he meant them. He would not abandon them. He had been given a second chance, to honor his father's legacy, to rewrite his own story. Taking them home was just the beginning. Ethan had always believed that throwing money at a problem could fix it, but he soon realized that these girls needed more than just wealth. They needed love, stability, and security, things he wasn't sure he knew how to give. He hired the best caregivers, provided them with everything they needed, but it wasn't until one evening, when Rose woke up crying from a nightmare, that he understood what was truly missing. She didn't need a fancy house or expensive clothes. She needed reassurance, someone to tell her she was safe. So, for the first time in years, Ethan let his guard down. He sat with her, held her hand, and told her she wasn't alone. As time passed, the transformation in Ethan was undeniable. He became more than just their guardian, he became their father. The cold businessman who had once only cared about profits now found himself attending school events, reading bedtime stories, and learning how to braid hair. The more he gave, the more he changed. But it didn't stop with Lily and Rose. The realization that so many children faced the same fate as them haunted him. He had the power to do more, and for the first time in his life, he wanted to use his wealth for something truly meaningful. Ethan dedicated his vast fortune to building shelters and programs for homeless children, ensuring no other child would have to beg for help at a stranger's grave. He created scholarships, foster care initiatives, and rehabilitation centers, pouring his energy into something greater than himself. His name, once associated with corporate greed, became synonymous with hope and transformation. And as the years passed, he realized his father had been right all along. In giving where it was needed, he had found what he never knew he had lost, his own humanity. Years later, as Ethan sat watching Lily and Rose graduate from college, he felt an overwhelming sense of pride. They had grown into strong, intelligent, compassionate young women, ready to take on the world. And in their eyes, he saw the reflection of the man he had become, not the ruthless billionaire, but the father who had chosen to change. He knew then that his father's legacy had not only been honored, it had been reborn.